In 1975, New Mexico Attorney General Tony Anaya went on the radio with a severe warning about the state's real estate market. People investigating land fraud were being murdered. Witnesses were disappearing before grand jury testimonies, and business partners were dying in highly suspicious insured plane crashes. Remote, worthless subdivisions were being carved up and sold to out-of-state buyers, creating a localized ecosystem of corruption bordering on $1 billion. At the center of these operations were regional developers, directly bankrolled by organized crime. The money often flowed through figures like Morris Schenker, a St. Louis lawyer who managed the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund under Jimmy Hoffa. That fund routinely financed casinos and real estate projects associated with the mob, serving as a dark financial engine for these aggressive land grabs. But the street-level enforcers and political fixers were small players compared to the real apex predators of the Southwest. Look at this corporate diagram. The entity at the center, AMREP Corporation, operated far above the bloodshed. The most devastating syndicate in the desert built their empire without weapons. They used aggressive accounting, their proprietary data, and the United States Postal Service. To understand AMREP, we have to look at this organizational chart of the 16 West 61st Street Syndicate. At its core was the Carity-Hoffman Group. Before they sold land, they ran entities like International Biotical Corp., marketing questionable health gadgets through the mail. This diagram illustrates their jurisdictional arbitrage loop. They would launch a deceptive product, trigger an FTC investigation, and use legal stall tactics to maximize revenue. Before an order was finalized, they abandoned the product and shifted capital into a new shell. This file for Audience Surveys, Inc. reveals their true advantage. They systematically mapped American demographic vulnerabilities, generating a master database of trusting consumers. Seeking zero manufacturing overhead, that precisely segmented data became the fuel for a massive interstate land sales operation. This schematic shows how they found their vehicle. Great Sweetgrass was a Canadian public oil company paralyzed by litigation and gutted by an insider heist, starved for immediate liquid cash. The New York syndicate needed a clean corporate shell with public trading infrastructure. In August 1961, the entities executed a formal merger. They consolidated the Clean Oil subsidiary and the syndicate's complex network of sales companies into a single output, American Realty and Petroleum Corporation, or AMREP. AMREP operated as a highly optimized extraction machine. The corporate structure was designed purely to pull wealth from out-of-state citizens without ever laying a single brick. Their target was a 91,000-acre expanse of arid, undeveloped mesa west of Albuquerque, called Rio Rancho Estates. There were no roads, no water lines, and virtually no infrastructure. This document breaks down the AMREP playbook. The hook: leveraging Albuquerque's legitimate population boom. The execution: using their proprietary database to target distant, out-of-state buyers. The illusion: presenting dissimilar, booming downtown properties as baseline comparisons to sell unimproved, sight-unseen desert dirt. Buyers put down small deposits and signed installment contracts, often $35 a month for 8 years. AMREP didn't wait. They instantly sold these contracts to financial institutions for an immediate cash payout, leaving the bank and buyer to face the long-term reality. By weaponizing geographical distance, AMREP guaranteed that up to 90% of their buyers were financing patches of harsh desert they had never actually seen. New Mexico did have a 1973 Subdivision Act designed to prevent this exact type of exploitation, but local enforcement was almost non-existent. County commissions were frequently captured by the developers themselves, and understaffed district attorneys lacked the resources to combat massive corporate legal teams. The state couldn't stop them, so the federal government stepped in. By 1975, the Federal Trade Commission issued a formal complaint, and a federal grand jury in New York indicted the corporation's top executives. The government strategy relied on a fatal flaw in AMREP's design. The same infrastructure that allowed Carity and Hoffman to build their empire, the United States mail system, provided the exact jurisdictional wire trip needed to dismantle it. Look at the federal record here. The government leveraged Title 18, Section 1341, the federal mail fraud statute. They indicted the officials on 70 counts of mail fraud and 10 counts of violating the Interstate Land Sales Full Disclosure Act. On the right side, prosecutors utilized the civil provisions of the RICO Act to seek triple damages. This mathematically annihilated the massive profit incentive that drove the syndicate in the first place. federal regulators successfully shattered the illusion. The aggressive sales stopped, and by 1977, 4 of AMREP's apex executives were convicted in federal court and sentenced to prison. Fast forward to the 1980s. Tony Anaya, the crusading attorney general who once publicly warned of mob-related murders, is now the governor of New Mexico. In a stark departure from his earlier outrage, Governor Anaya exercises his state clemency power. He issues official pardons to the AMREP subsidiary and its convicted executives, removing the legal barriers that prevented them from doing business with the state. The pardons were the result of a structural paradox. The machine sold so much land to so many buyers that Rio Rancho accidentally manifested into a massive inhabited community. People actually moved there. AMREP had become embedded in New Mexico's political economy as a major source of housing, employment, and tax revenue. Continuing to punish the corporation based on past federal convictions threatened to cripple a municipality that was now very real. They had become too big to fail. It reveals a quiet, uncomfortable truth about American real estate. When a corporate extraction scheme reaches a large enough scale, it stops being prosecuted as a crime and starts being protected as civic infrastructure.